Hello there everyone, my name is Crazy Caleb and welcome to Sporadic Segments. This module I've had on my list for a long time to do, and the reason why I've held it off for so long is because it is a very difficult module to actually do here. However, this module I quite consider to be underrated. It's not used on many missions, but at the same time, I can understand why it is not on many missions, because of the fact that it is very tricky to get the read here. And the way that the read works here is what we have here is we have a wide variety of different segments that are going to be displayed, and they're going to be changing at when each second passes. And we also have to pay attention to some of the displays that are going to be appearing here. And the way that the displays work is it's going to be on the bottom for when the next one's going to be coming up, and the top one is the one that it is currently right now. So it's currently a segment, and it's going to be display. And as you can see, surprising is coming up. It's going to go up to the top, and that represents the current one here. So that's going to be very important to know. Now, what's going to happen here is there's going to be a specific cycle that's going to be happening throughout this entire thing, and I wouldn't necessarily focus on the whole the top text which repeats every time the top texture that shows the word sporadic, but essentially what's going to happen here is there's going to be a cycle of sporadic, surprising, speedy, spontaneous, 7, segment, and finally display. It's always going to be in this exact order, and this actually will be used later on as it is relevant. These represent different positions. In this case, that's going to be very important to note down. They represent different positions in reading order, and each of these segments are actually going to be associated with a specific value. And now what we have to do with this module here is we're going to have to determine values for each of these displays of text, and that's going to be very important for us to do. So this is going to be the first part of this module, and what we're going to do here is we're going to be trying to focus on how to get that. So the first and probably the hardest part about this module is actually getting a place to start off with the with each of these guys here. And the way that this is done is actually going to be how the last digit of the timer is essentially. So each segment is inverted when the last second digit of the bomb's countdown timer is certain digits. And the way that this is going to work here is we're going to try and get a series of 3 of the exact same digits. I usually like to get 0, for example. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and produce different results. We're going to try and produce actual numbers that have the same inverses, essentially. So let's take a look and let's start gaining some stuff. So we've got spontaneous. That's going to be right here. That was noted down on digit 0. Let's note down our next one here. We've got display coming up, and this is going to be U, 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 and U. That's for display. And finally, we're going to note down our next 0 here being speedy, and it's going to be U and U. And now, what we're essentially going to be doing here is the reason why I noted down all of these on 0 is because of the fact that these are going to be the exact same inverses applying here. Now what we need to do is we need to start producing actual numbers from this. This is going to be where things get a little bit interesting. So I'm going to save this state here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to be essentially trying to we're trying to get numbers from this. And the way that I like to do this is if we take a look at how this works, these are the 7 segment displays that represent numbers here, in this case 0 through 9. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and start with just focusing on 1, and we're going to try and build like a specific number, in this case being 0. And what we're going to essentially do here is we're going to apply all of the inverses that we do to the first one, and we're going to be pressing the exact same positions in the other 2, essentially, to form numbers. So let's try and build a 0 first, and let's see what we get here. So we get 0, 5, 4 by doing this. Do we get anything by going around here? So 0, bam, 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 bam. We do not, because of the fact that this is going to be producing this weird, wacky result. So we can already rule out 0 as our first option here. Next up, let's try and get 1. So we're going to do this one, this one, and this one. This one, this one, this one. Very close to potential value here. Not going to work, though. Now, with this in mind, the fact that that was so close, let's go back to the original state here. Let's actually try and form a 7, and let's see what that does for us. Because all we simply need to do is we need to simply press these 2 guys right here. And if we press these 2 guys right here, this gives us a 5. However, if we press these 2 guys, this is going to give us gibberish, and this is not what we want here. So this is not going to be the correct answer. So we need to look elsewhere. Let's go to 2 next, for example. So let's go U, 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 U to form a 2. Then let's go U, 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 and U. Not going to work. That's not a number. Let's go 3. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. Not going to work. 4. Get rid of U. Bam, 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 bam. Get rid of you. Bam, 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 bam. Not going to work. 5. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. Oh, here we go. And then we do bam, 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 bam. Ooh, here we go. So now, what we just did here is if we go back to our initial state, what we did here was we tried to build a 5 with our first example here, and we toggled the segments of here, 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 and here. Now, if we toggle the sectors of each of these other ones here, in this case, bam, 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 we get the number 7 for this one. And if we toggle here, bam, 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 we get the number of 4. So these 3 displays that we've already figured out so far represent 5, 7, and 4. So spontaneous represents 5, display represents 7, and speedy represents 4. And now let's try and get the rest of the sequence here. So we've got 7. I just missed that there. But now what we want to do here is we want to try and build the rest of our sequence here. We want to try and get the rest of these 7 displays because this is going to be relevant to help us figure out the second step here. Sporadic is going to be this and this. So we're going to do dun, 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 dun. This is going to give us a 6. Next up we've got spontaneous. We've already determined spontaneous, and we've already determined the next 3 that are going to be coming up. But essentially what we're going to try and do is we're going to be using the 0 offset because we know what the offset, we know that what the inverses are of this, and we're going to be trying to get the rest of the numbers that are in these, each of these words here. That's going to be what we're going to do here. So now we're going to get the speedy here. We're going to get our next one coming up here soon. So let's wait for this next 0 to come around. We're going to clear a spot for us. So this is going to be representing what? Looking at the bottom of the segment, this is going to be this top bit right here. Okay. So segment is going to be bam, 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 bam. This is going to be a 3. Our next one is going to be a surprising, and this is going to be right here. Bam, 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 bam. This is going to be a 9. Surprising is going to be 9. We'll clear this. We got our next one. 7 is coming up, so it's going to be right. Bam, 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 bam. So 7. It will be our last one here as well, actually. Bam, 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 bam is going to be resulting in an 8. And just like that, we have determined what each of these displays, in this case, we have the 7, we have the sporadic, surprising, speedy, spontaneous 7 segment display, what each of these displays represent in this case of numbers. Now what we need to do is we now need to figure out what each of the last digits, in this case, invert. We need to figure out we need to figure out each of the segments that are inverted in each of these digits. And the way that we're going to do this here is I'm going to do this in a similar fashion of we're going to do 0 equals, we're going to do 9 equals, 8 equals, 7 equals, 6 equals, 5 equals, 4 equals, 3 equals, 2 equals, and 1 equals. And also, of course, 0 equals. And now, since we already know what 0 equals, the way that I'd like to note this down is I'd like to note this down in reading order. So in this case, if we were to go back to our first state here, we notice that it would be 2, 4, 6, and 7 that were toggled here. So we're going to note down 2, 4, 6, and 7 as these guys that were toggled here. So now, with this in mind, what we're essentially going to do here is we're going to note down a specific time, a specific digit, and a specific display, as well as the specific segments that are toggled there. And we're going to try and recreate that number, essentially, and we're going to figure out which segments were essentially toggled. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So we've got 7 right there. So 7 right there was sort of like a foxtrot, I believe. So 7 was an 8. So we need to build an 8 from this, and we need to figure out which segments were inverted here. So in this case, if we take a look at here, we need to build an 8, which represents all 7 displays being present here. So this is going to be us toggling 3, 6, and 7 for this one. So 3, 6, and 7. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, so next up, then what we have here is we have, next up we're going to go to 8 here. Let's clear this. And let's note down the display here. So 9, 8, it's going to be spontaneous. Spontaneous is going to be this display. Spontaneous represented a 5. So all that we need to simply invert here is going to be the 6th position. That's quite nice and simple here. All we simply do is recreate the 5, and just like that, we're good to go. Next up for the 7 here, let's go to 7. Next up for 7 is going to be a spontaneous. That's going to be this guy right down here. Let me make sure I've got view of this. So 7, this was a spontaneous. We need to recreate a 5 here. So we need to do a 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if we take a look at for example, another 7 here, right here, speedy. And if we toggle 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, speedy was a 4, And just like that, we have recreated, essentially, we've recreated the number that was representing Speedy, and we've determined that successfully that this is going to be the segments that are inverted, essentially. That's going to be what we're looking at. So next up, let's go to 6 here. We just missed it. Let's go 6, 0, 9, 8, 7. It's going to be segment right here. So segment was a 3. So now what we need to do for 6 here is we need to recreate a 3 here. So 3 is going to be recreated by doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These were the segments that were toggled here because we started off with this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Built us the 3 that we needed here. And just like that, we were good to go. So now let's go to 5. 7, 6, 5. Surprising. And it's going to be sort of like a lowercase hotel, but backwards. So surprising. Surprising is a 9. 9 is what we need to create here. So we need to do a 1, 2, and we need to do 1, 2, 5, 7. If we do 1, 2, 5, 7, in this case 1, 2, 5, and 7, we indeed recreate our 9 here. So let's go to 4. Let's go to 4 next. Let's take a look. 7, 6, 5. This is going to be a 7. So 7 is going to be a backwards foxtrot. 7, we need to create an 8. So this is going to be simply a 2, 5, 7. Nice and easy. Very nice. All I have to do is just recreate this. Let's go to 3 now. 4, 3. This is going to be 7 once again. So 7, we need to create an 8. This will be simply a 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. Next up, 2. Surprising. It's almost a 0 here. So surprising, it's a 9. So all we simply need to do is we need to do a 2, 4, and a 5. 2, 4, 5. All right, and finally, all we simply need is 1 here. So let's get our last one here. So we have 1. This is going to be surprising once again. So 1, surprising. Surprising, we mentioned, was a 9. So all we're simply going to be toggling here is a 3. 3 right here. We're going to be toggling 6 and then 7. 3, 6, 7. And just like that, what we have done now is we've determined what each of the last seconds, what each of the segments were being inverted on each of the last seconds. And we've determined this. So now what we need to do now is for each of the digits where the segment is inverted, add 2 raised to that power to obtain that segment's value. And essentially what this means here is for each segment that had a segment that was inverted on each of these specific digits, we're going to apply that power to whatever digit was remaining. So in this case, it's 2 to the power of, and essentially what you're doing here is binary. And this is actually quite simple to do. So we're going to start with the 9 here. We're going to start with the 9th most digit. And the way that I like to do this here is I actually like to just simply focus on the ones. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down. We're going to go down the list. And the ones that, the cases where the 1 is present, we're going to mark that with a 1. And the cases where 1 is not present, we're going to mark that with a 0. So in this case, it's going to be for the first segment, it's going to be 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, giving us 10 digits, a 10-digit long binary string. That's essentially all we're doing with this module here. So let's do the same for the rest of these guys here. So number 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. For number 3, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Next up for number 4, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. Next up for number 5s, for 5s that are present and ones that are not, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. For number 6, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. For number 7, finally, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay. And this is essentially what it looks like when we're done with everything else. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to convert these guys from binary into base 10, and we're going to get our final values for this module here. Convert all of these. I'm too lazy to teach you guys how binary works. I'm just going to use the lovely conversions of a base converter. So 168 for this guy. Convert this one, 181. Then we have this guy right here, 578, vert 205, vert 252, vert 963. Okay, and then finally for our last one here, we have 755. So now, for our final part of this module, to solve the module, we need to press each segment when the last digit of the bomb's timer is the digit at the corresponding position of the digit sequence, plus the last digit of the segment's value, modulo 10. So what these determine is the segment's value. And what we also need to order here is we also need to order the displays that we had beforehand. This is why this order is actually relevant here. So in this case, what we're going to have here is each of these segments, each of these displays represents a part of a segment. It represents the display. It represents the number for that segment. And what we're going to use is we're going to use the values that we get from here, plus whatever values we get from here, and whatever the last digit is, we're going to simply press on that digit. So the first one was sporadic. Sporadic represents 6. Next up is surprising. Surprising represents 9. Speedy represents 4. Spontaneous represents 5. 7 represents 8. Segment represents 3, and display represents 7. So each of these are the 1 through 7 positions. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to be adding each of these individual digits to each of their corresponding segment values in this case. So we're going to get 6 plus 168, or simply all you need to do here, because we know that for a fact we're going to be modulating this by 10, is simply take the last digit of the value that you get here in this case. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then subtract. We're going to do 6 plus 8, which is going to result in 14 or 4. We're going to do the same thing. 1 plus 9 is going to be 10 or simply 0. 8 plus 4 is going to be 12 or 2. 5 plus 5 is going to be 10 or 0. 8 plus 2 is going to be 0. 3 plus 3 is going to be a 6. And 5 and 7 is going to be 12 or simply 2. And now what we're going to do for the final part of this module here is we're going to be pressing these segments when the last digit corresponds to this position. So our top one is going to be 4. Our left one is going to be 0. Next one's going to be 2. And you can submit these in any order, by the way. 2. Then 0. Then 0. I'm going to wait. I'm going to take my time with this. Then 6. And then finally to close us off with the 2. And just like that is a solved module. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the displays of these by starting off by focusing on one inverted set and one inverted value here. In this case, we focused on the 0. What we were able to then do is we were able to then determine 3 of the 7 values of our displays, or of the words here. And then what we were able to do is figure out the rest of these displays, and then what we were able to do is then we were able to figure out the rest of the inversions of each of these timer ticks. And then what we had to do is we then had to do this binary conversion here, in this case, starting from the 9, in this case being the most significant, all the way down to the 0 being the least significant. If the position was if the position inversion was present in that timer tick, we're going to count that as a 1, or in this case a 0, and we were able to then convert this back into base 10, add back these values together, and then we were able to simply solve this module. If you guys have any questions about how this module works, don't be afraid to leave a comment in the description. I will be here to help as much as possible. I know that this module is very tricky, and it looks like you have no idea how to even start with this module, considering how little information it gives you. But trust me, once you understand how you essentially begin this module, it will all come full circle later on. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to stay crazy, stay cool, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.